Hello and welcome to the Telltale Cake, where we talk about cake and we read books and we try to ignore the corpses underneath the floorboards. I have done better intros than that. Normally, I would introduce my guest, Laurie, and say things about her to let you know what kind of person she is. But today, I think it's more appropriate to use a scientific approach. So, Laurie, I'm going to measure this distance between your eyes. You are definitely a mass murderer.
Ouch.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
I'm Beth, by the way, and I am not going to be measured because I am the one with the tape measure, and I know myself, and I am not a mass murderer.
Yeah, the scientist gets to determine the science.
Right, that is how science works.
Exactly. Science, pure objectivity.
So, Laurie, murderer.
Yes.
What are we reading today, and why are we reading it?
We are reading Terry Pratchett's Nightwatch. So the reason we're reading it is because it happened to be the book I was reading when you asked me about this. But
Solid.
Right? I started going through all of the Terry Pratchett novels that the UGA Public Library, or it's not public, it's a university library, and I work for the university, and thus it's my library, but all of the ones I had, because I realized I'd only read bits and pieces of the Discworld series and completely out of order. And I've still read them all out of order, but when I got to Nightwatch, it struck me as just such a brilliant book, but structurally so different from the rest of the Discworld series that I thought it would be fun to talk about.
It's one of my favorites, to be honest, so I'm really happy that you picked this one. It's one that I just happen to own. And I think it's really one of the more serious and sadder ones. And now that I've read it before, but I feel like it hits harder now that I'm older.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think the more you can relate to Sam Vimes as the adult John Keel, the more the book punches you right in the knackers.
I would tend to agree with that. But more importantly, how do you feel about truth, justice, freedom, reasonably priced love, and hard-boiled eggs?
I mean, mostly I feel strongly about hard-boiled eggs.
But you pro or con?
Oh, I'm pro. I eat 2 a day as my breakfast during the week, so no soldiers with them for dipping, because that requires toast, and toast requires forethought that I don't have in the mornings.
Breakfast is difficult. So right away I can sense some conflict here because I don't like hard-boiled eggs.
Oh, gosh.
There's just something about the texture. I don't like stuff that's got that kind of rubbery, squishy feel to it.
Oh, yeah.
So I also don't like mushrooms for the same reason, and I'm not wild about Jell-O.
I adore mushrooms, and I can eat gummy bears by the handful. Jell-O, it's fine. I mean, the more I think about what Jell-O is, the less I'm likely to eat it. But then, there are only really 2 foods that I draw the line at, and one of them is okra because it knows what it did. It doesn't taste good enough to justify that texture.
It's sticky.
Yeah, it's snotty. And the other is balut, and
I don't even know what that is.
It's a Filipino delicacy. It is a 14-day-old fertilized duck egg that is then hard-boiled. And
no,
it's supposed to just taste like an egg, but I can't. It's a conceptual issue, and I don't ever want to yuck anyone's yum, especially when it comes to food from a culture that's not my own. But
yeah, I'm not sure.
I'll leave plenty on the plate for other people. But other than that, I'll eat just about anything.
Perfect. So what we have to eat today is a cake that I'm going to ask you to say.
Spiegeleierkuchen?
Sure. It is a German fried egg cake. And there we go. It is just a cake, A white cake is what the recipe calls for, but I find white cakes unexciting. So this is actually a Williamsburg orange cake,
Ooh.
but without the raisins or pecans. There's a custard on the top that I substituted orange flavoring for to stay with. And then the recipe calls for half an apricot on the top, but those aren't in season right now, so these are plums.
Yeah, Germans love apricots so much.
I don't have any problems with apricots. I love a good apricot, but they're just not available.
They are highly seasonal, and this is not their season.
Exactly. That'll work.
You can already tell I like the crumb on this cake.
Good.
Danke.
And I will inelegantly lick my fingers because I got custard on them. And there's a little bit of cocoa sugar on the top just to give it the pepper on the egg illusion.
Yeah, because this is a German illusion cake. Mm-hmm. I have a very limited understanding of German. It's mostly through my love of Bayern Munich as a soccer team. So my good German is all about football. But I am learning Germans really like food that looks like other food, but that isn't that food.
Well, I'm kind of a fan of this.
Yeah, this is, when I say dense and moist, it is a compliment because it's got that, like, old-fashioned pound cake feel in the mouth, which just is so comforting. It tastes like grandma's.
I really like making this as a cake base, the Williamsburg orange cake, because it's just such a good, solid, yellow buttermilk cake.
Yeah.
With a little bit of orange peel and orange essence in it. So it's got a nice little bit of citrusy flavor. And then I really like the way the custard on the top is super moist. Looks like the plums could have been a little bit riper.
I'm trying my ladylike, delicate best to not send it flying over the barricades.
I am very excited about this cake. And it's cute.
It is. It's really cute.
And with it, we have ginger beer.
Cheers. So,
For the ginger beer trick. Now,
precedented.
I do like to judge books by their covers because how else would we judge books?
It's very efficient.
It really is. Terry Pratchett, though, never really has great covers. These aren't the worst, like this particular series. It's not particularly interesting. It's just,
So I will say, with this book, I think the fact that cover looks more like a hard-boiled mystery novel than some of the other Discworlds, which can get a little bit more flights of fancy. I think someone at least made a modicum of effort to match it to the story, or at least to the main character of Sam Vimes.
I like that. Yeah, it's at least simple. It's not overly crowded. We also have Lilacs ? I'm not really totally clear on what lilacs looked like. These were labeled as lilacs. We have lilacs. There's a song and lilacs that are themed throughout the book. People wear lilacs to remember this major thing that happened. And there's fewer and fewer people that remember every year, which I find, again, as I get older, I find that to be more true. There's just, and I know there's a lot of people who would make fun of me for this because I'm still pretty young, but this is the oldest I've ever been. And so this is the most experience I can have. And I have started to notice that these events that were just major history-changing events from our past, there's now a generation that doesn't remember them. Yeah. September 11th was the example that popped into my head because there are people I know who do not remember air travel pre-9/11 and how just nice it was. You just went up to some guy at a desk who asked you if anyone had tampered with your luggage and you said no, and that was security. Yep. It was pretty great.
You didn't have to take your clothes off in public to prove that you weren't going to
set your shoes on fire?
Yeah, the thing that, oh man, it's the liquids that gets me. So when I was living in Oxford, England for a summer, coming back, I had a small jar of Oxford marmalade and of,
Delicious.
oh my God, it was so good, and of mustard. 3.2 ounces, I think, of mustard. I also, for this story, had about 20 bottles of nail polish, all in the same bag. They confiscated my mustard because it was over 3 fluid ounces and could thus be flammable, but they left the 20 bottles of nail polish.
That seems more flammable?
More flammable, and if you look at the numbers, over 3 ounces. Oh my God.
Ugh.
Yeah, it makes me feel all safe and warm and fuzzy inside. It's like the ginger beer trick has been done on me, in my soul.
Serving and protecting. Yeah. Let's get into the story.
All right.
We are in the tyranny of Ankh-Morpork. Tyranny is just what kind of political unit it is. And we are following one of my very favorite Discworld characters, Sam Vimes, who at this point is His Grace Sam Vimes, a Duke, like commander of the City Watch. And he is having some thoughts about, well, first of all, his wife is having like a child right now, which he sort of thinks maybe not as much as I would think he would think about it, but it is going on. He's thinking about how much easier his life used to be when he was just an entry-level policeman.
Yeah.
And he was having the fantasy that I think a lot of us have when we get to a certain point where we have made the mistake of demonstrating competence at our jobs, which is that we wish we didn't have that much responsibility and work. We wish we could do the entry-level job, but with the competence we have now.
Yeah.
Because struggling at an entry-level job, that's never fun. The first few days at a job are just the worst.
Yes, they are. But then you quickly adapt and you figure out what it is you're doing and you learn new skills and you apply them and then you just get smarter and smarter and smarter and older and older and older. And then you forget how much effort goes into acquiring all those skills and all of that knowledge and how long it took you to labor to get to who you are now. And you forget that, like, there's a big difference in the person you were and the person you are. They are two completely individual people. And just because I have that person's memory, just because I have Laurie's memory from one time in the past, all multiple Laurie's memories, doesn't mean that I am that Laurie anymore.
We would probably make different decisions now than we did in the past just because, I mean, even without the whole we know how it turned out aspect, we just know more stuff about how the world works.
Yeah, the wiring in our brains changed. The way we make our choices has changed because of all those little things adding up. And yeah.
But it's also easy to look back and think, oh, things were simpler then.
Yeah, I think a lot of people fall victim to that fallacy. The rosy-colored glasses of, it was lovely back then, wasn't it? It was great then, wasn't it?
Of course. So Sam Vimes is doing that. Yeah. And he's doing that while chasing some sort of notorious serial killer type criminal person. And this is giving him thrilling excitement, like the thrill of the chase. He gets to be the hard-boiled detective of his youthful imagination, which is nice. We should all be able to live out our youthful fantasies occasionally. I would love to rob a train before I die.
That would be so much fun, wouldn't it?
Right? It looks so cool in movies.
Yeah. Like Fast and the Furious style or cowboy style?
Cowboy style. Okay. And I want to like ride up next to it on a horse and then jump and then run along the top. Doesn't that seem cool?
That does seem really fun. I would Fast and the Furious style it because there's no problem that cars aren't the source of or solution to. So to drive a car up onto a train, moving and somehow goes into space, but then pull off a heist Yeah, that would be awesome.
It'd be great.
Yeah, it's making my arthritis act up just thinking about it.
But it sounds so fun.
Yeah.
So he's getting to live out his, like, youthful fantasies, but he's just chasing a criminal. And he's chasing a criminal with the full authority of basically the whole city, because he is the commander of the City Watch, and Vetinari is pretty much on Vime's side.
Yeah.
But then there's sort of an accident around Unseen University, which happens whenever we need a magical thingamajig to happen.
Yep.
So we get time-traveling shenanigans. And he ends up back in time at the same time period with his young entry-level policeman self, taking over the character of his old mentor and former police hero, John Keel.
Yes. Yes. He miraculously travels back in time to the very imagined youth that he had been fantasizing about. And the notorious criminal, Carcer, is really he seems insane, but he's a sane man because he's the sanest of men, because he realizes that rules don't have to apply to him. So he just doesn't follow them. And what makes this criminal so frustrating is, for Vimes, that he'll just lay waste to everyone around him and have just aw shucks, me? Kind of response to it. Because, like, did I do that? Like, the Urkel approach to crime. And it's just beyond frustrating because he's not following the rules. Because he says, I don't have to follow the rules, so I'm not going to follow the rules. And so you have Sam Vimes, maker of rules, and Carcer, breaker of rules, traveling together through timey-wimey shenanigans back to the most important day. And
we don't know what that important day is, but we know that it's looming, burgeoning on the horizon.
Yes, because there are a lot of plot points and tropes deployed early on in the book to say, hey, did you notice? I'm looming. I'm important. Did you see me? I'm important. I might be a metaphor. Look at me.
Terry Pratchett is many things, but I would say he's probably not subtle. And one thing with Lilacs that I wonder if he's doing, because he's super genre aware, is if he's actually kind of making a callback to T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland, where he talks about April is the cruelest month, breeding lilacs out of the cold ground.
Oh. So my knowledge of poetry is limited to, at one point, being able to quote Howl by Ginsberg, because I love the beats. But that's about it. I've read Wasteland at some point in my storied academic career, but I would not have been able to tell you that that's where April is the cruelest month comes from. But I think that makes sense. And it is... They're not officially a spring ephemeral, but they, like, in the, that's a category of flower. But they are so very of their time, and I think that they easily get loaded with metaphor by artists, and so their choice is always Pratchett's always intentional, but I think it is tying it into a larger literary tradition, much the way that the book itself is tied into a larger literary tradition through, like, Les Mis and all of those references.
Thank God we avoided a long discussion of the Angmar pork sewers. I don't think I could have dealt with that.
I feel like that's in a different Discworld book.
Probably.
I mean, literally, isn't it?
Yeah, because isn't there a King of the Golden River?
Yeah, Harry King.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He deals with the city's shed.
Yeah, that's in, is it Making Money? It's one of the Moist Von Lipweb books.
Probably.
Yeah.
So yes, he does have a long discussion of the Angmar pork sewers. Fortunately, not in this book.
Yeah, we're all spared. No, there's, in this book, I think One of the things I really like about the structural motif that he uses of the time travel is like saying, no, I'm doing something completely different. Not only does he want to make it darker and more mature in its content, and because not a lot of people stay dead in Discworld, and several do. But I think he wanted to do something that his normal Sam Vimes structure wouldn't really allow in the story, and I think arguably Sam Vimes is Pratchett's greatest creation across everything.
I wouldn't argue with you on that.
Thank you. Well, I am a criminal. I might mass murder you.
This is true. How? I'm one person.
I'm powerful? No, you're so much stronger than I am. Trickery somehow.
I can easily fall for trickery.
I think it allowed him to spend time in Sam, old Sam and young Sam, in a way that, following the progression of Discworld, he never really got, because our first real Sam Vimes book, he's in media res, like he's already a fully formed character, so we don't get to see the growing pains of creating someone like Sam Vimes. And in order to do that, you need like extended flashbacks, but that's gross. And writing one long flashback is dumb. But when you have magicians and time monks and they're just like hanging out, why not time travel? And then you can start really diving into an area of the universe that you've built that you hadn't had an opportunity to explore before. That mature, darker, more serious side of a really ridiculous world.
Mm-hmm. And about meeting the young Sam Vimes, I actually marked a passage that I want to read because I've been having these feelings about, my younger self. It was always the dream, wasn't it? I wish I knew then what I know now. But when you got older, you found out that you now wasn't you then. You then was a twerp. You then was what you had to be to start out on the rocky road of becoming you now. And one of the rocky patches on that road was being a twerp.
Yeah.
So young Sam Vimes is a twerp, and it's not a great time to be a twerp. It's not a good time for Ankh-Morpork. This is before Vetinari is the tyrant. The current tyrant is kind of a paranoid, insane person who is enacting lots of atrocities on the citizenry. There's a bunch of secret police doing disappearing.
Awful stuff. Yeah.
And they are doing it very scientifically because you have your occasional evil people who just go out and murder people and then die. But then you also have people who just start measuring people and deciding based on some science, #phrenology, that some people are just evil.
Yeah. It's, that is a fascinating character. Find the Swing. Just the name alone is annoying. He's the most punctilious but weird dude. In the book, he's all immediately off-putting as soon as you meet him, because his phrasing, you get a visual representation of spoken rhythm that's uncomfortable to read. Some words are collapsed, others too long of ellipses, but not like traditional dramatic pause, just awkward. And it makes you uncomfortable physically reading it. So it's like being around this man who is so convinced that he knows what is what. Like just giant eyes of craziness. That, yes, of course we can measure everything. We can measure distance between your pupils and the distance from the top of your head to your chin. And that ratio will tell me how many people you've murdered today.
Which is ridiculous on the face of it.
Yeah.
But this is one of those where, with carcers not having to follow the rules, some people are just in a position to make rules that make no sense.
Yeah. And that's something that I really appreciate about Pratchett and Sam Vimes. And a lot of people in this book are asking Sam Vimes if he's on their side, because it's revolution is fomenting, and they want to know, are you on our side or are you on their side? And he's like, no, I'm Sam. I'm on the law's side. I'm not on the people's side because that doesn't exist. And I'm certainly not on the tyrant side because he's just one in a series of monsters. But he's on the side of what feels right. Not necessarily truth, justice, and freedom.
And reasonably priced love.
And reasonably priced love. Yes, not free love.
Because the Seamstresses Guild, where seamstress is a euphemism, is fighting for labor rights and the right to organize, and good for them.
Yes, it's that what the people in this book, lowercase the people, are fighting for are admirable for the most part.
The right to have unions, or guilds as they call them in this world.
Yes, the right to collective bargaining, which is very important. The right not to get disappeared and tortured by a crazy person, which everyone should have the right not to be tortured by your government.
The right to not be measured to determine what kind of person you are.
The right not to be found wanting by some privileged asshole's arbitrary sense of what he thinks should be right. To live your life as you see fit without hurting those around you. Mm-hmm. And that's what Sam stands for. And so he's an unintentional revolutionary hero because he doesn't want to get swept up in politics. He hates politics. But he is so passionate about community, about individuals, people, that he's on the side of doing what is right because he cares about the people that are around him. And I think that's one of the things that Pratchett sort of drills in. It's like governments change, big sweeping policy, all that stuff changes. But if you care about the people who are around you in your daily life, you make little changes, the tiny little changes in history that make sure that you stay you and your community stays safe and healthy and not blocked off. You're not keeping people away. You're not stopping anyone from being themselves. Like Sam Vimes is not a progressive bastion because he does have some pretty racist ideas about trolls and dwarves that throughout the series never really go away, even though he quietly diversifies the City Watch so that every type of person gets to be represented.
Except vampires.
You have to draw the line in the sand somewhere. Vampires are his balut. You just can't. So he's trying his best not to be the person that he is, because he doesn't really want to admit to himself that he is a hero. He kind of likes to think of himself as a scumbag, because it's a novel romantic vision he has of himself, of this dirtbag on the streets, and he doesn't like the idea of, no, you are the richest man in the richest city on this side of the disc.
You're not a man of the people anymore. People with capitals. And the way as embodying John Keel, this old hero from the past that he kind of takes over the identity of due to timey-wimey stuff, what he does to find these swings disappearing atrocities is not thrilling heroics, it's bureaucracy. It's using the rules of society, just demanding receipts for prisoners. I love it when a character uses bureaucracy to defeat evil. It's one of my favorite things.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's funny. It is very funny, which Pratchett never loses sight of. Humor is always there, especially at the gallows. But it is also so true, you know? It's like, it's not the standing on the top of the barricades waving the flag that's going to make change. It's, well, these are the rules, so I see how you're breaking them. Let me enforce them. Let me be a little pain in the ass and do it the right way to thumb my nose at you. But you can't say anything because it's the rule and I'm following it. He's for such an aggressive character, it's his beautifully passive-aggressive actions that are really his most heroic. Like, he doesn't give a big speech about how we're not taking these prisoners into that, letting them go to the unmentionables, who are the cops who kill everybody.
The SS.
Yeah. He doesn't grandstand about that, but he quietly manipulates the situation around him so that it just so happens that everyone's safe. And also we're back in time for Coco. Yeah, it's that's the thing about Sam Vimes is he would never admit it, but he kind of thinks of himself as the smartest man in the room.
And in a lot of cases, he is.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is, I think, he doesn't let himself get swept up with fervor. So one of my favorite examples of his passive aggression is there's rioting in the streets because of police brutality. And because Sam Vimes is actually a great police officer that we actually trust, and we're not great with police, we can get there. His reaction to this mob who wants to grandstand with him and get him to do some atrocity or arrest somebody for no reason, his response is to go on break with a cup of cocoa outside the watch house. Just be like, I'm on break. I'm not going to arrest anybody. I'm on break.
Yeah.
Well, when are you going to be off break? Maybe tomorrow. And he talks to people because he knows these people. He knows who they are. And he also talks to them about the police that they want to violence, because this is a small community. This is sort of the dream of community policing, where both the police and the community know each other. And also Sam Vimes has managed to clear out all the corrupt police with... He does actually sort of make a couple of sweeping gestures to do that. That is, I think, where the heroism comes in, that in his worldview, he gets to make the police a force for good, which is not really something that we've really seen happening in our world.
Yeah, because what's the old adage? Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And we see that, like, American police force was not formed to protect and serve. It was formed originally to chase down slaves. So it was all about recollecting property.
The precious property.
Yeah. So I am highly suspicious of police in all aspects of my life. I'm very uncomfortable with propaganda. And so I have a strange relationship with Sam Vimes because he's such a great character, but he's also such a cop.
He's such a cop.
Yeah, but I think Nightwatch is Terry Pratchett kind of wrestling with his own propaganda through Sam Vimes, because Sam is not a perfect man. He's a good man. He's a flawed man. He's a fabulous character, but he is as close to a perfect cop as you can get, because he's not policing his community. He's protecting his community. He's making sure that his community stays stable and safe for everyone involved in it. And that's not really the goal of police in our real world. And we've seen time and again that any human who gets a little taste of power tends to go crazy with it. I mean, I do. I absolutely do. I am a queen, terrible as the dawn. You do not want me to have authority over you. That's not true. I'm actually a really good boss, but I'm also a bit of a tyrant. I just happen to be a militant labor organizer. But like, I am not excluding myself from this. Like the young Sam Vimes, at one point they're clearing out the House of Pain, with a torture dungeon of the bad cops, and the young Sam Vimes is there with old Sam Vimes, and young Sam Vimes sees firsthand what was being done to people. Previously, he had been able to out of sight, out of mind. Well, they went in there for questioning, and now he has actual blood and guts, literal blood and guts testimony of what's been happening, and it kind of starts to break him. And he has the opportunity to murder the executioner, but old Sam Vimes stops him, and young Sam Vimes doesn't understand why. And it's one of the things that the book tries to wrestle with throughout the rest of the book, because it happens about 3/4 of the way through.
Something like that.
Yeah, timing in this book is weird. It's a whole lot of nothing and a whole lot of. But it says, no, that is the difference between us. Is that, yeah, you may want to do this. You may want to exert your power and your authority in this moment when you can, but you choose not to because there's something bigger than just that rage that's inside you. There's something more than the pure power that you have. And Pratchett's characters who don't recognize that, who can't turn off what Sam Vimes calls the beast inside them, the really rich people who just assume, oh, well, it's my right. I'm in charge because I have money, and my family has had money for years, so of course I get to do whatever I want.
I was born for this.
Yeah. Those people are incapable of heroism. They are villains, no matter which book you're reading. But it's the person, the biggest hero is the person who has that, and then says, no, it's not right. Not because I'll get caught, not because of these practical reasons. It's not right. So you don't do it. And I think if actual real world power figures had that, then no, we just don't do that. Then I would have less of a problem with cops.
But Laurie, we definitely don't torture. I mean, we may have defined torture to make sure that it doesn't include any of the things that we're doing legally, but we don't torture. One of the things Sam Vimes also does is he asks questions. What is the law and who does it serve? Which I think is always a great question because it's not an easy answer. Mm-hmm. And the kind of crimes that police can deal with are little crimes against people with power. Like, if somebody on the street steals my wallet, it's a bureaucratic inconvenience for me at worst, but the police will help me with it. So I also work for an academic institution, and I don't know about yours, but ours has definitely stolen things from Greece for its museum. And the cops can't do anything about that. They won't do anything about it. Yeah. The only consequence that anyone will ever face for that is the Chronicle of Higher Ed is writing nasty articles about it, which they should. God bless the Chronicle. But it's not a real consequence.
Yeah. Yeah, the biggest source of theft in this country is wage theft.
It is.
And the cops will not hold your employer accountable for denying you what is yours, for stealing your money. The biggest crimes are not policeable. And that's because the system was set up that way. It was set up by people who wanted to maintain their stranglehold on their power and their wealth. And all cats are beautiful.
So the situation in Ankh-Morpork has rather come to a head, so we're going to full-on Les Mis this and build some barricades in the streets.
Yes. I am not that familiar with Les Mis. I took my mother to see the film version of it several years ago, so I have the vaguest notion that there are a couple of characters in the book who are like Aaron Tveit, and there's a character who's probably like Eddie Redmayne.
I am unfamiliar with these cultural references.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
so in the Hugh Jackman Les Mis, the two young men in Les Miserables, the actual revolutionary,
Enjolras.
yes, played by Aaron Tveit, the Broadway star, who our mutual friend Victoria loves,
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know
Yes.
who you're talking about.
and then the incredibly boring young man who is inexplicably the only one alive at the end.
I know who you're talking about, and I can't remember his name.
He's so boring.
I can tell you who sang him in the original Broadway cast recording, which would be Michael Ball, I believe, but I can't remember the character's name. What's wrong with us?
Well, he's the most
Boring.
Yes, that was my takeaway at the end of the movie. It was
How are two women like madly in love with him? He's
I
so
don't get it.
boring.
He's so boring. And Amanda Seyfried's character is the other woman who's alive at the end, and she is also so boring. Everyone interesting is dead.
Marius and Cosette.
Yes. Which one is which? I don't know.
Cosette is the boring woman who's alive at the end that is adopted by Jean Valjean. Marius is her love interest, who is the failed revolutionary who survives. I've read the book. I've never actually seen the musical, but I have the soundtrack. I love the soundtrack. I pretty much know it by heart. I started to watch the movie version, but the Jean Valjean character singer was not very strong, and it annoyed the crap out of me.
Is that Hugh Jackman?
Possibly. Is
Or
the
Russell-
convict.
Oh, okay, yes. That's Hugh Jackman, and then Russell Crowe is the cop who chases him.
I mean,
Is that Javert?
yes. So for an actor, he is a decent singer. For a Broadway star, he does not cut it. And that is such a strong singing role that I am unwilling to settle.
No, one should never settle. Unless it's into a comfy chair.
I can settle into a comfy chair.
Yes, but all of our complaints about the casting of a movie version of Les Mis that we're not actually talking about today.
Aside.
It's to say that it's really the last 3/4 of the book. In your mind, the revolution takes up so much more like psychic space, but it's so little. We don't even meet Red Shoe until like here. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. It very quickly becomes spot the Les Mis Easter egg.
And to be fair, the book Les Mis is approximately this big, and the revolution part is approximately that big.
Yeah.
Even though that, like you said, it takes up psychic space. It's full of this easily romanticizable events, people doing death and glory shit. Like, I like trashy novels as much as everyone else. I love me some death and glory. But
Yeah.
I think this is a more accurate rendition that there's a lot of stuff that is happening. There's a lot of stuff that's actually more important to the politics of the city going on with Veterinary and his aunt.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be much more meaningful than the Les Mis moment. And it's just weird that it takes up so little space.
Yeah. I want to talk about Veterinary. Havelock Veterinary, the perfect tyrant.
Yes. Love him.
So
Want to be him.
yes, amazing. Trained by the Guild of Assassins.
Majored in concealment, but which he failed because he was never seen to be attending the lectures.
I love that throwaway. It's essentially him as a teenager here in this book, and he's insufferable. He's perfect. But because I read all of these out of order, is his aunt, Madam, who is a madam, What's the phrase? If the seamstresses do your pants while you wait, she's bespoke tailoring is her line.
Maybe, like, I don't recall that his aunt shows up in any other books,
Okay.
so I'm not sure. As you reread all of them, you'll have to tell me.
So far, I haven't. There are a couple of early ones that I haven't gotten to because they only have them at Georgia Tech, and Georgia Tech won't send the books to me.
Jerks.
Right? Yeah.
Why not?
They have rules, I guess. So unless Madam shows up in any of the Tiffany Aching series that I haven't yet read, which I doubt.
I don't think so, though. Tiffany is lovely.
Tiffany is lovely, and there's very little room for a high-class prostitute labor organizer in those books. I haven't seen her anywhere, but she's striking. She's purple. Like, she's... I have a friend, I think you've met, Jessica, who...
Yeah.
Yes, who, when she was 5 or 6 years old, wrote a school paper about how purple is the greatest color, and she is stuck with it. It is her thing. So when they describe Madam, head to toe in purple, always surrounded by purple, and with a cat, I just see my friend Jessica.
Now I do too, and
Yes.
I love it.
Yeah, it makes the character even better because she's brilliant. She's cheeky. She's witty. She's affable in a way that a lot of the powerful rich people in Pratchett's world aren't. She seems like she might be fun to be around. But
I would love to go to a bar with her personally.
oh, yeah, that's a lot of champagne though.
Maybe a coffee shop.
Oh, yeah. There's one scene, the scene where Sam Vimes meets Madam for the first time, and she downs 2 magnums of champagne as they talk.
Yeah, I'm not sure my liver would survive that.
No. But she's amazing, and getting to see her was almost worth the price of admission, like for the book, because she couldn't exist anywhere else. And as far as I'm aware, she doesn't exist anywhere else. But can you imagine the way the ripple effects of what happens in this book narratively, but also metaphorically for all of Ankh-Morpork? Could you imagine her not here? Like, what would happen without her? She is the one who is actually manipulating the grand scheme of things. If Sam is on the ground taking care of individuals in a neighborhood, she is moving all of the international chess pieces in place she is trying to do something better.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't have Sam's fatalistic future vision to know that the next dude is going to be a disappointment too. But she's using her power not just for herself, but for other people. She's trying to make a guild for all of her other seamstresses. She's trying to make things better for the women that she is supporting, and also for the city at large. But she's rich as sin, and she's Vetinari's aunt.
Yeah, who knew that he had an aunt?
Who knew that he had family of any sort and didn't come fully formed sprung out of a rock or something? It's amazing. I love that Vetinari has family ties to
a seamstress.
To a bespoke tailor. that is Vimes's word for her, and she's very charmed by it. And then it sticks in my mind is like, when she demonstrates how charmed she is, he's like, man, why do I have to cut? Why is it only after I'm married that suddenly I'm super hot to all these rich ladies? Which is a lovely little throwaway for me. It's so Sam. I was like, couldn't I have been hot when I was a kid? Man. I love that. Yeah, but she's phenomenal, and not at all from the movie Les Mis.
Not at all. There is no Vetinari in Les Mis, which is possibly why in Les Mis the whole barricade thing is a total failure and everyone dies, except for the boring dude. and Marius. So back to this Les Mis moment. Sam Vimes has decided that his job is to keep the peace, or at least a piece of it, that's here behind the barricades. So there's this very British moment when they decide to just wave the flag of Ankh-Morpork and sing the Ankh-Morpork anthem. And this is apparently very weird, which is, as an American where people are performatively patriotic, that's very charming to me that people regard anyone who even knows all the words to the Ankh-Morpork anthem with suspicion.
Yeah.
To be fair, I'm not sure I know all the words to the Star-Spangled Banner. Not even the first verse. And so he's demonstrating they're not rebelling. They're keeping the peace. This part of Ankh-Morpork is still loyal to Ankh-Morpork no matter what's going on with the current tyrant. And now, despite this, the army gets sent in.
Yeah.
But they're doing a bad job because they decide to send in cavalry in streets against a barricade. And again, you'd think that this would take up more time and space in the book, but it really doesn't. And this is where we really draw close to the moments we've been foreshadowing throughout the book with the blooming lilacs and the song that keeps being an earworm in Sam Vimes' head, All the Little Angels, which is not a real song, though there are people on YouTube who have delightful versions of it. And we get this wonderful speech about the practicalities of revolution because our Enjolras character, Reg Shu, is all about freedom, truth, justice. You'd like freedom, truth, and justice, wouldn't you, Comrade Sergeant? Said Reg encouragingly. I'd like a hard-boiled egg, said Vimes, shaking the match out. There was some nervous laughter, but Reg looked offended. In the circumstances, Sergeant, I think we should set our sights a little higher. Well, yes, we could, said Vimes, coming down the steps. But, well, Reg, tomorrow the sun will come up again, and I'm pretty sure that whatever happens, we won't have found freedom, and there won't be a whole lot of justice, and I'm damn sure we won't have found truth. But it's just possible that I might get a hard-boiled egg. Vimes is a practical man.
Yes, he is. Sometimes to a fault. I do appreciate Reg Shu taking all of the that's so sweet kind of vigor of the revolutionary. For people who are unfamiliar, Reg Shu is a recurring character. He is a zombie, and we get to find out how he becomes a zombie.
He's just too dedicated for death to stick.
He's so passionate. He's such a passionate revolutionary that no one else knows about his secret cell of revolutionaries because he's a spy on the inside.
Sure.
But his passion and his belief in truth, justice, and freedom will not let him die, even after being peppered with, I think it was at least 8 arrows that are mentioned specifically. Or bolts. Sorry, crossbows. Get my weapons wrong. Back to the Les Mis. I like that I cannot pronounce the French name, so I'm going to say Aaron Veit's character gets sort of split between Red Shoe there, all of the... And then Ned Coates, who is a member of the Watch, highly suspicious of Sam Vimes, but a true revolutionary. Has all the skill, all of the strength, and the ability that Reg lacks. Put them together, you have one perfect ideologue. But they're separate, and they both die.
Which is unfortunate. But it only sticks for one of them.
Yeah.
There's also some commentary about how cities work. Because during the barricade and the whole fighting in the streets bit, the city has stopped working. And Vimes is thinking about how much it takes to run a city. Where are the food wagons going to come from? And I will admit, I've wondered this myself. I was in Houston when there was a catastrophic hurricane, Ike, and there were a few days when food trucks couldn't get into the city. And you start to worry because there's like 4 million people in Houston. And there's no farming in Houston.
No, there's just roads.
Yeah. And all the roads flood whenever it rains because the city was poorly designed. So what's going to happen? Like, yes, there's people who are richer and have food stockpiled, but what about all the people who live unhoused?
Yeah. And it's not that people don't have food. There is food. There's so much food in the book. They couldn't give away steak dinners. There's so much steak that people who don't get to eat meat, they're just like, oh, I'm full. But you can't get to it because the roads are closed and the warehouses are some. And that's one of the most brilliant little interludes. It doesn't have Sam thinking it. It's the somewhat disembodied narrator who points out that in the layout of Ankh-Morpork, all the truly important things, like government buildings and temples and banks, are outside the barricades. So how will these poor revolutionaries in the People's Republic of Trickle Mine Road know what to do without a government, without a bank, without a temple? All they have are all of the food warehouses and all of the artisans and all of the craftspeople. So, like...
all the people who actually do stuff.
Yeah, the things you need to actually live and to run a city, they have. Well, that's where they're located. Their house, their warehouses are, so they'll be fine. It's the people on the outside of the barricades that are screwing themselves over. But still, because Ankh-Morpork is the center of the economic universe in this, the food's still coming. The list of things that Ankh-Morpork consumes on a daily basis is insane. And Sam does go down that list, like 100 cows every day, and I can't remember how many pigs, and just thousands of eggs. What did he say, like 40,000 eggs a day? And you just get this mental image of all of these carts moving, slouching towards Bethlehem. Still coming.
I thought you said you didn't read poetry.
I read the funny references, and I've watched that episode of Supernatural. Yeah. Also, I'm kind of a liar.
Yates, Supernatural.
No, just slouching towards Bethlehem is an episode, I think, in the second season. Victoria made me. Yeah, but you have like the gears of industry. The economy is still going because what Lord Winder, the patrician at the time, I think of him as a Harkonnen, really. What he's done, it's kind of petty, and it's just in the city, and so the city is fighting itself. It's eating itself, but it's just a city. There are the plains, and then there are the other nation states around who still have business, and they're still coming because there aren't like phones. They don't have semaphore. They don't have the clacks here, which are technologies that develop later.
Telegraphs.
On. Yeah.
They're pretty great.
Yes, they are. Life continues, and it keeps coming, and it will keep coming. And just the sheer weight of all that is coming is in itself like an impetus to work this shit out. Because all those eggs, all that flour.
And all these people who need food.
Yeah.
Including the important people.
Yeah.
Now, up in the important section of town, Lord Winder has been mysteriously murdered in a room full of people none of whom have actually seen what has happened. Because sometimes if you see something, no, you didn't.
Yeah. No, it's a great scene. It's happening while sort of pointless battles are going on with Sam. So all this tension, and it's a party that Madam is orchestrating with the way it's described. if you looked upon it from the rafters up above and put a red dot on all the people who didn't like Winder, a white dot on all the people who did, and a pink dot on the people who are still making up their minds, you could watch the dance of them flow around. And she is brilliantly manipulating so that there's never a group of white dots, right? You can never have too many friends. You're always alone and make yourself feel very uncomfortable. And the pinks are always sort of warmly welcomed by lots of red. There's lots of red everywhere. But there are also these corridors separating out Lord Winder by himself, who is just monstrous. When we get the first real description of him in person, he is impossibly grotesque, which I kind of love. Which is also why I think of him as Lord Harkonnen.
But like in the David Lynch film in the 70s? Like...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, boils everywhere. Sorry. I just unsettled myself. And you have this amazing scene of the sort of crowd quietly parting without drawing attention or noticing anything, but all sort of collectively, just like a school of a swarm of birds susurrating in the air, moving to allow one lone assassin to approach Winder. And it starts to dawn on him what's happening while he's shoving cake in his mouth. And it's my favorite bit is he's not actually murdered. It's as Veterinari is drawing his sword that the dude has a heart attack. It's so, so great. And then there's Death. There's a little interlude where Death takes Winder away and he says, yeah, there's no more time for cake for you.
Which is so sad.
Right. Because even Lord Harkonnen deserves some cake. Everyone deserves some cake.
I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, you're a mass murderer, and I still give you cake.
I appreciate it, too. Thank you. It'll fuel my crimes. Yeah. Yeah.
I only vaguely regret this.
It's on my tombstone. I only vaguely regret this.
Perfect.
Yeah. Actually, what'll be on my tombstone is, come at me, bro.
But
famous last words.
They are famous last words. So Lord Winder is dead. So his job is going to be taken over by the equally disappointing Lord Snapcase. And Snapcase, his first disappointing action is that he's not thrilled about people who foment revolution in the streets. So he kind of sends Carcer, which I think I just now got might be a pun for incarcerated. I'm a little slow sometimes. But Carcer gets a little army and gets to go basically murder Vimes.
Yeah. Yeah. Because Carcer has failed his way up. He falls into this this period, and immediately murders John Keel and takes all his money. And then is discovered by Swing and given a job and promoted to sergeant. And then he's promoted even higher to captain of the palace guard by Snapcase. So he just keeps falling up in his brutal insanity, his brutally sane insanity, and uses every opportunity to exact his personal vendetta of, yeah, why not, against Sam Vimes. Yeah. So, Snapcase. Yeah. What a guy.
But it is the glorious 25th of May.
Yes.
And this Treacle Mine Road Rebellion, they should have won. It should have been them winning. But in the original timeline, there was a bunch of death on the barricade. But in this timeline, they won.
Yeah.
But the government is still going to kill them because it's inconvenient.
Yeah.
They do get some help from an army guy who teaches them the song, All the Little Angels, How Do They Rise Up? And they rise up in increasingly anatomically improbable ways. And they also, to identify themselves when they go out fighting, they take sprigs of lilac. And then in a few paragraphs, maybe as much as a page, they fight, and we have the 7 deaths that we've had foreshadowed since the beginning. that have taken up so much of our space and are foreshadowing this whole book. And then it's just over very abruptly. And before we can even process it, Vimes and Carcer kind of have a little wrestling match and fall back through timey-wimey stuff.
Yeah.
And then they're just alone in their own time, and Carcer basically dares Vimes to just kill him.
Yeah. Yeah. We established that Sam's wife, Sybil, successfully has the baby with a massive assist of the one good doctor in all of Ankh-Morpork, who Sam just happens to know from 30 years ago from falling through time into that man's life again. So, decided, okay, we don't have to worry about that. Everyone we love is so safe. And Sam goes to visit the graves of the people who died then and is having what Lao-Tzu, the history monk, told him would be his one perfect moment, where it all comes together and he realizes this is what this was for. This is why these things happen, and look how beautiful everything is in this moment and peace. And wait, shouldn't there be an egg there? Why there's only eggshells? And then Carcer tries to goad him into giving up his sense of what is right, into just joining the dark side and killing him. Because Carcer doesn't really care what happens to him. He's like, meh, all right, fine, whatever. Because he's so beyond rules and so beyond what normal people would place value on. Now he's just fucking with him. He's just messing with his head. And what Carcer wants to try and do is corrupt Sam, who has been called incorruptible by Madam earlier in the book. So this word's hanging over you. And we watch Sam struggle with whether or not to do it. And finally comes down on the side of, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to kill you. I'm not going to give in to my beast. I'm going to do this the right way. I'm going to do this such the right way. I'm going to check all of these boxes, cross all my T's and dot all my I's, and I'm going to bureaucrat you into a grave. And then, poof, there's Veterinari.
Who always manages to poof himself up.
So it's amazing. Like he's described as being, people aren't aware of him. They don't notice that he's there, but suddenly, oh, that space seems a whole lot emptier than if there just wasn't people in it. Yeah. And Veterinari puts it all together, has figured out all the timey-wimey stuff.
Because he's Veterinari.
Yeah, because
There's one book where he learns to juggle just by watching it and goes, well, it just makes sense. You just put the balls where they need to be.
as someone who has tried learning to juggle,
My level of hand-eye coordination is nil.
yeah, I can write my name. And I have terrible handwriting. Yeah, but the veterinary is there mostly so that someone other than us is aware that Sam continued to draw the line.
Yeah, it's not like a private thing.
Yeah, so he doesn't have to bear that weight on his own. Someone who understands the full stakes of what's happened, because he was there on the 25th of May originally. He's been the one promoting and pushing and fighting back against Sam through the entire course of the Discworld series. He's his balance, because they both ultimately have the same aim. They just have dramatically different ways about going towards it.
They want to care for the city and make it work.
Yes. And so it's very crucial that Veterinari is there to carry some of the psychic weight of Sam's final choice to be right and to be bureaucratic. Yeah. And also to let Sam be cheeky and get away with it just a little bit. Just this once. Yeah. They have the strangest non-friendship. I love it.
It's great. There was one point where Sam actually managed to arrest Vetinari in Jingo, which is a glorious balance of power.
Yes. It lasts for about 15 seconds.
But it happened.
It happened.
It was important.
Yeah. Vetinari could have stopped it, but he let it happen because it was important for Sam to be able to say that. Even though Vetinari knew full well, I designed this cage. I can get out. I'm the only one who can get out of it. And
Vetinari has never had a prison cell that he would not be happy spending a night in.
yeah, he's such an amazing character.
He's entirely too perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. And as somebody who normally wears like head to toe black. Well, actually, no, that's not true. Dark gray. It really is my color. I have a special affinity for him as a fashion icon too.
Perfect. So the time has come for us to rate this book on my unitless sugar scale. So the S in sugar stands for sexiness, which I would say this book is not very sexy.
For all of the subtle euphemistic talk about sex, there isn't much. So no, I don't rate it highly on the sexy scale.
I will rate it highly on respecting the rights of sex workers.
Yes. Yes. That gets a 10 out of 10.
Ripped bodices? No, like
Yeah.
fair trade bodices.
Yes. Well-made, union-made bodices.
Everyone is fairly compensated for making these bodices
Yes.
that are going to be ripped. And that is important, damn it.
Yes.
The U stands for uniqueness.
See, that I think is tricky because there is nothing quite like Discworld.
Nothing.
But one of the appeals of Discworld is the way it is kind of like so much.
It is a place where all tropes are welcomed, and we don't just put a hat on tropes. We dress them fully, and we put them out and introduce them.
Yeah. Yeah. So how would you rate this on uniqueness?
I think I might put it fairly low on uniqueness. Not that, because it's treading a lot of ground that we are very familiar with, both from Discworld and from things like Les Mis. And it's more of an essay reflection on Les Mis than anything else, I feel like, maybe.
Yeah. While I want to say it is singular, it is not unique.
It is not.
No.
Singular, but not unique, I think, is great. The G stands for gender. And this is actually much better than most Terry Pratchett books. I think it passes the Bechdel test because a lot of the seamstresses talk to each other. He does not make a lot of disparaging comments about women's appearance in this one, which is nice. Some of his earlier novels, Yeah. There's a lot about women with careers, and who are fighting for the right to organize.
And they are leaders in this, and it is never questioned that a woman would be that powerful or a woman would be that central to something as grand as revolution. So,
and we also have Vetinari's aunt.
Yeah.
So if Vetinari is the perfect teenager, he has the perfect aunt.
yeah,
She's
the ultimate cool aunt.
Yes. She is the one who seems to be arranging for a regime change, to use CIA terminology.
Yeah. So I would rate this high on the gender scale.
Which, for a Terry Pratchett novel, is great.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then where I think I'll rate it most highly is the A stands for axiness, because Franz Kafka says that a book should be an axe for the frozen sea inside us, which is a delightful phrase that can mean a lot of things. This made me feel things and think about things differently, and it made me question my own devotion to stories like Les Mis, to the death and glory tropes.
And it every time I read this book, It makes me re-examine my own relationship to authority figures and to police officers and to the sort of knee-jerk reaction I have to that, which is, I think, incredibly powerful because no one should allow their own opinions to calcify. So I would rate this high on an axiness scale.
There are many axes, and they are big.
Yes.
They will be very helpful for you.
as I use my trickery to kill.
Mm-hmm. Also an axe, which is just convenient. Finally, the R stands for readability, which, as you pointed out, this is an odd experience reading it because the actual action of this story takes up very little space.
Yeah.
Most of it is reflecting on the action and taking up emotional space with it, but it's super quick to read.
Yes. There's something about the Sam Vimes novels within Discworld. There are others, but Pratchett does different structural things with the page. The only set of the books that I think, or at least that I've come across, that have traditional chapters are the Tiffany Aching series and the Moist von Lipwig series. So this is really just one continuous text, but it's compulsive to read. You feel compelled to go forward because there are breaks. There are natural places for you to pause and to catch your breath or go to the bathroom if you need to. But the structure of the book pulls you forward in it. You just keep going. It's not no more one less chapter. It's you have to just keep going. So I would say it was very readable. Also, his prose is the balance of humor to
it's very delightful
pathos
to read.
Yeah.
For me, I have to force myself to slow down because there's a lot of very little things that happen. And because it is so enthralling, it's easy to read past it for me.
Yeah.
So I tend to miss things if I don't really concentrate, if I just get caught up with reading. And that is good writing.
Yes, it's excellent writing. And those little moments lend it to reread ability. It gives you more every time. Not just you're rediscovering, oh, I missed that joke the first time, but you're seeing the threads connect and the relationships across the page. So yeah, you have to pay attention to it, but it rewards you if you're willing to come back to it as well.
Definitely. So very high on rereading.
Yeah.
So, Laurie, I'd like to end on something new that I want to try, which is I'd like us to bibliomantically predict the next month for our readers. So I brought along my copy of the Aeneid.
Ooh.
And I would like you to flip through it and randomly select a passage to read. Okay. Let's see. With this reliance, no ambassadors I have sent, nor tried you first with cunning arts. I myself has risked my life and come with my petition to your royal court. So, I think this means that we shouldn't, ask nicely for anything. We should just go for it.
Yeah. Don't use any subtleties. Don't use any arts. Just forthright, say it out, ask.
Yes.
Go get what you want.
Yes. Get what you want. You can do it. Is there anything you would like to tell our readers or to exhort them to do or read?
The other book that I'm currently reading right now, which is kind of fascinating, I think you might get. I am reading the English translation of the Icelandic edition of Dracula.
Isn't that a whole different book?
Yes.
I've heard about that.
Yes, it is. It's wild. I spent so much more time with Thomas Harker in Dracula.
Thomas?
Yeah, Dracula.
Who's Thomas?
That the characters have different names.
Huh.
So it's Thomas and his fiancée Wilma.
That's sort of related because her name is Wilhelmina, right?
Yeah. In Castle Dracula, spent much longer there, and then there's a cabal, an international political cabal of high-ranking social vampires that pull the strings And that's one of the reasons why Dracula wants to go to London, is to puppeteer world events. But there's no Texan. They don't run back. There's no death at the... Yeah, it is dramatically different. And the version that I have is an actual academic text. It's like David Foster Wallace level footnotes. And there is an entire essay included about how they laid out the mental imaginarium of the castle, Dracula's castle, and the logical fallacies that pop up. Like, he could not have, from his bedroom, seen that tower to his left. He must have been in the library to see. Yeah. I cannot remember the names of any of the academics involved in it because I was not paying attention, but it is very interesting, and it's called Powers of Darkness.
I can look that up and put that information in the description. That sounds fabulous, and I really want to read it, especially as I'm currently rereading Dracula, which is a fantastic novel. Everyone should read Dracula and Dracula's Icelandic fanfic.
Yes. Yeah. It's appropriate because our friend Jessica teaches that novel, Dracula, all the time. And since it was recently spooky season, she's been telling us about how she's introduced her students to it and their reaction to it. Now I'm kind of curious to have her read the Icelandic version, but in my mind, it will be Madam reading Powers of Darkness.
While in purple.
While in purple.
Love it so much. All right, with that, thank you so much for being here.
I've had a wonderful time.
I'm so glad. I hope you've had a lovely time as well. Like and subscribe.